Americans For Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans For Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, March 1st, 2019. The newly elected Congresswoman who represents the 14th District of New York is certainly creating quite an impact. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez makes dramatic statements, and whether you agree or disagree with her, many of her proposals are forcing all sides to take a position. Now, most politicians believe that they should take a position on a controversial issue only if they're forced to at the point of a gun. I mean, why should they alienate any potential supporter? Now, whether you agree with her or not, you have to admire the fact that Ocasio-Cortez doesn't first check with the swamp or poll her constituents before she says anything. She just comes right out and says what she believes. The Congresswoman states that her proposals will ensure a better life for all Americans. Now, to those of us who live outside of D.C., a better life for all Americans is a noble idea. However, the definition of just what is a better life and how do we get there is where there's widespread disagreement. Now, without considering her specific proposals on how to achieve this better life or looking at other alternatives that might be dramatically different from her proposals, we can all agree that all of the proposals require funding from the government and or the private sector. So just what are some elements of this better life on which most of us can agree? I'd submit the following. Well-paying jobs for all who want one. American-produced goods are not penalized when compared with imported goods. Access to medical and dental care. A cleaner and more sustaining environment. Safe and efficient infrastructure repairs. Education for all. A sane immigration policy, and a financially secure Social Security system. Now, your list may differ a bit, but one of the things that we can all agree on is the first one, well-paying jobs for all who want one. In later articles, we can show how the fair tax will help achieve the other items on the above list, but it's clear that the fair tax will help create more well-paying jobs for all who want one. Now, some people might say that all you need to do is have the government pass legislation requiring a higher minimum wage or a guaranteed base income for all. However, for many employers, a rapid increase in labor costs may make them unable to compete with imported products that are subsidized by our income payroll tax system. Now, there are those who point to the growing federal debt and say we must find a way to do this through the private sector, and there is a workable way. You make employees more valuable. Let's compare fast food workers in New York City and Fargo, North Dakota. Here's some facts. The minimum wage in North Dakota is $7.25 an hour, which translates to $290 for a 40-hour week. The minimum wage in New York City is at $11.10 per hour. That translates to $444 per 40-hour week. Now, a fast food worker in Fargo, North Dakota actually earns $10.24 an hour. Now, that's $410 a week or $21,299 a year. A fast food worker in New York City earns $11.32 an hour, which equals $453 per week or $24,547 a year. Now, according to the New York Department of Labor, the unemployment rate in New York City was 4%. The unemployment rate in North Dakota is 2.7%. Also, the cost of living in New York City is 118% higher than it is in Fargo, North Dakota. So if a fast food worker in Fargo moved to New York City and wanted to have the same standard of living, they would have to earn 118% of the $10.24 per hour they're currently making, or about $22.50 an hour. For the New York City worker to have the same standard of living as the transplanted Fargo worker, they would also have to earn that same $22.50 an hour, almost double the minimum wage. So the question is, why is a worker in Fargo paid $3 an hour more than the minimum wage there? The reason is directly tied to the unemployment rate. Workers are in short supply. In order to attract workers in Fargo, the fast food owners have to pay more. They also have to hire and train people who might not have the right skills because they simply can't get more skilled people who have moved on to higher paying jobs. Now, if the unemployment rate in New York City were to fall to 2.7%, then there would be pressure to not only pay fast food workers more, but also to train people who are less qualified. So let's look at how the fair tax will help bring unemployment down. Here are the facts. There is no longer a debate among economists that the fair tax will grow the economy much more rapidly than the present income payroll tax system. Because capital is not taxed under the fair tax, investment capital will pour into the United States. More capital investment will lead to higher worker productivity, and higher productivity will lead to higher wages for all workers. Unemployment rates will plummet even more, retail prices will be lower by at least 10%, and companies will be forced to recruit and train previously unemployable people and pay them higher wages and provide more benefits to keep them from moving on to higher paid employment. In conclusion, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and many of her supporters don't trust the activities of the swamp and their supporters in Congress, and they shouldn't. The swamp is only interested in policies that protect their own interests and the interests of the groups who pay them. They may protest that they care about the rest of us, but given the choice between policies that pay them a very high income and ones that serve the good of the rest of us, they choose not to reduce their own income. Increasing the minimum wage, as New York City has done, will only lead to more pressure on minimum wage employers to find ways to automate and reduce the number of minimum wage workers they employ. That is, if the overall economy doesn't improve. Now, if business is booming, all employers will be competing to attract and retain workers, and this will lead not only to higher wages, but also to the necessity for employers to spend time and money educating workers. This will lead to workers with improved skills, and this is vital. A study published by Bain & Company concluded that, quoting here, by the end of the 2020s, automation may eliminate 20 to 25% of current jobs, hitting middle to low-income workers the hardest, end of quote. The new training employers will be required to provide will enable many of these workers not to be replaced, but to continue to advance in their chosen areas of employment. So, not only will the fair tax enable more people to be employed at higher wages, it will also allow more spending by people and more revenue into the federal treasury. And this should be very appealing to anyone who really cares about doing what's best for the American people.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org or bigsolution.org.